What's going on for Victims and Villains? My name is Josh, and today we are counting down the top 10 short films from this year's GenreBlast Film Festival. GenreBlast is a film festival that we have been covering since 2018, and it is one of my favorite films festivals to cover each and every year. It is where I have discovered some truly just out of this world weird films, but also at the same time have also just happened to have found some real gems here as well. Now, this film festival had 98 short films, and so when I tell you it was really challenging to boil those down to 10 short films that I wanted to talk about, these films resonated with me as a cinephile, as a horror fan, as a mental health advocate, and really just speak to the quality of this festival. So I tell you that this was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do as a journalist. I'm not lying. Let's jump into it. At number 10, we're going to go ahead and have the experimental short film Torn Together. Now, this film tells the story of three individuals searching for their identity. This movie is really experimental. It's probably the most experimental film on this list. It's one part drama, it's one part psychological, and it's one part interpretive dance. I think what really helps and solidifies Torn Together's position on this list is just how vulnerable and raw the emotional aspect of this film is. There's very little dialogue in here, and so you're going through this very quick character journey, a search for identity, and I think it just sticks the landing. I think it takes a lot of bold jumps, a lot of bold leaps, and overall just really works for every single hurdle that it's trying to overcome, and it just all flows together masterfully. Later this month, you guys can check out an interview that I did with co-writer and director Melissa Knepp about the process of making this film, at its mental health themes of identity and vulnerability and just the creative process of doing it. It was a fascinating interview, and make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button below so that way you guys don't miss it when it goes live. At number 9, I'm going to go ahead and put The Universe and You. Now, this is probably one of the lighter films on this list thematically. It tells the story of a PBS-styled program that is taking live calls, and it's very comedic in the first half of it, and then somewhere along the lanes, it just kind of does this complete genre flip and really just sticks the landing with this kind of sci-fi horror just 180 that it performs. I don't want to give away too much of it, but the writing in here is really slick. The acting is exceptional, and just both camps and both genres that this film encompasses, with it being this really goofy kind of satire, self-aware portion of the first half, and then being this really tense, emotional, just insane sci-fi horror twist that it has in the end just really is terrifying and just really well done. I've talked about it on this channel before, but anytime that you mix genres that don't typically go together and you're trying to do a mixed genre styled story, it takes a master storyteller and director, writer to really solidify and bring all of that together. And I think The Universe and You is a great example of when it's done well. Not to mention, as someone that grew up on PBS programming that captured the cinematography in that aspect really well, and then when it kind of makes that genre switch, the cinematography stays really rich, but is shown from a different angle that I thought was really well done and just made the film look really beautiful and made the colors really pop. At number 8, we have The Dread. This movie is an atmospheric short film that tells the story of a man grieving the loss of his significant other and just happens to stumble upon the Wendigo. I think this movie does atmosphere really well. I really do think that the cinematography and how this film encompasses you as the viewer is just really gripping. It makes for kind of the reveals of the Wendigo and the emotional state of our protagonist really, really just really impactful. The film's protagonist ends up actually losing someone to suicide, and as a suicide survivor myself, I feel like this film really accompanies the grieving process and the aftermath of losing someone to suicide really well, and it does it in a way that feels really engaging, really informative, but also allows and uses that as fuel for the emotional state and disdain of the protagonist, mixing in with it these brilliantly mixing in these fantastical horror elements. Character design in this movie is phenomenal. Just gonna say that. At number 7, we have one of the longer shorts on this list, and that is Biters and Bleeders. As the title would suggest, this very much is a creature feature, but it is a lot more than that. And I feel like this film does a lot with this 30 minutes, but what really made it on this list is not only the exceptional performances and writing of its cast and crew, the filmmakers behind Biters and Bleeders, but it's also how this film is paced. So Nathan Ludwig is one of the festival's programmers, and in the Q&A following the screening of this film, he mentioned that sometimes when you have a film that exceeds 20 minutes in the short form format, it becomes really hard sometimes to continue to grab the attention of your audience. And I bring that up because not once does Biters and Bleeders ever feel like it drags or ever feels like it rushes. It has the perfect pacing to really capture your attention and really crescendo in this just magnificent climax and satisfying conclusion. I talked about the dread being really atmospheric, and this one also is really atmospheric because there are moments in this film that made my skin crawl. And I think that's kind of the point that the filmmakers intended, and really is what helps it make it be so effective. The acting is exceptional in this, and there's also worth mentioning that this film, in terms of genre, is able to balance a little bit of comedy in this, which I feel like sometimes for a genre like the creature feature or some of the other aspects that this story is trying to tell, sometimes that can feel really hard. And these filmmakers made it look like a breeze. At number 6, we have the short film When You're Gone. I feel like I'm on a kick when it comes to atmospheric films. This is another one. This film explores the fallout of a girl's breakup and ultimately how it leads to this unique, borderline extraterrestrial encounter. And yeah, honestly, the less you know about When You're Gone, the better and more impactful this film will be. So if I kind of butchered that synopsis, I'm sorry, but like I said, the least you know about this film, the better it's going to be. And what's really impressive about this one is that our protagonist is also the writer and director on this film. So she's pulling triple duty. Kristen Oriega is one of the most talented filmmakers that I feel like was spotlighted at this year's GenreBlast. Not only is the script really well done, the creature feature is just absolutely grotesquely gorgeous. But also, this film has a really emotional core with a really satisfying payoff at the end as well. And I think that comes down to the performance and the direction of this film. It's beautifully done across the board, and make sure that, again, you hit the subscribe button below, because later this month I sat down with Kristen to talk about this movie and the future of this. So if you guys are interested to find out more about it and this piques your interest, click the links and hit that subscribe button below and check it out when it goes live. Number 5 is a film called Bowling Forever. This movie tells the story of a depressed teenager who turns to bowling as a way to escape suicidal desires. Again, the least you know about this film, the more impactful it will be. This film is a period piece set in the 90s/early 2000s at the height of AIM, Instant Messenger, Jinko, Jeans, and more. And I think that not only does this film feel like an accurate representation of that, but I also feel like on the flip side, this movie also has a WTF element about it because it's really weird. It just really sticks its landing. It feels kind of experimental, though not as experimental as Torn Together. And I think that a lot of the leaps and bounds that the filmmaker was setting to make here absolutely just work gangbusters and producing one of the best shorts this year's GenreBlast. The acting is really good. This film has the charm of like an independent film, like something along the lines of like The Whackness or Mean Creek. I really feel like this film feels like a turn of the century independent feature that you may have forgotten about, but there's this cinematography, the way that the characters interact with one another, that this film captures really well. So not only is this a period piece for the time, but it's also works well as a period piece that is exploring how films were made in this time as well. Not only does this movie have gorgeous cinematography, but this movie also has animation that feel like it crawled out of a 90s time capsule. I think the way that it blends together, it creates this mixed media representation that just really works and really flows. And not only that, but this film I feel like really adequately captures what it was like growing up as a teenager during that era and kind of the depression and the mental health that you can have. I feel like this film captures a lot of that really well, but also it's a great coming of age story, and also at the same time it is also just a really great representation of depression and mental health as a teenager. And so the writer and director of this film, I cannot pronounce their name. However, I did do a written interview that I will provide in the links below that you guys can check out right now. At number 4, this film is called Alone. This film perfectly captures what it is like to lose a loved one that is connected by multiple people and how that single tragedy affects the relationships around you, not just necessarily the ones that you had with that person. I'm just going to keep this short and simple on this one because I feel like this is a perfect film, like, quite honestly. I feel like it conveys the character journey really well in a really short period of time. It's well acted, it's well written, it's well lit, it's well directed, and it just has everything that you want in a good, short, bite-sized film. This one packs an emotional punch, really makes you think something, and really makes you question and analyze your own mental health journeys. And I think it's just the perfect storm of just everything you want in a film. Well done. At number 3, we have the Spanish coming-of-age story, Peccadillo. This coming-of-age drama tells the story of a young man currently battling with depression and grappling with his religious upbringing to pursue his heart's desire of becoming a drag queen. This movie is phenomenal across the board. The performances are exceptional, the lighting, and just how this film embraces a lot of the character journey that this young man is feeling is absolutely just outstanding. I honestly don't feel like there's enough good that I could say about this film. This film is just stunning, riveting, and captivating from start to finish. I think this movie perfectly captures the internal struggle between a religious upbringing and a heart's desire, and how the two can sometimes conflict, and really having this character journey through happiness. Remarkable storytelling. The character design, too, of the representation or the personification of these internal desires, I thought was just absolutely gorgeous. I think some of the set pieces and the center designs just are lit extremely well, but also are just so effective for the viewing process because it feels like you're literally stepping into the mental health of our main character. Pacing of this film is just absolutely 100% well done. I feel like the climax of this film just works really well, and just the ending was one of the most satisfying endings of any film at this year's GenreBlast. Honestly, this film was remarkable from start to finish. It has a lot of charm to it. It has a lot of heartbreak to it, but also at the end of the day, it's just well done. At number 2, we have the second longest film on this list, and that is the short film Blank. The story revolves around a couple that is grappling with the recent news of a medical diagnosis of one of them. The story, let me just start off by saying this movie is heartbreaking, to say the least. I think this movie is gripping. I think it works as a drama, but the last act and the way that it kind of starts to become a horror film is just works really well. But let's face it, if you kind of experience some of the things that our main character with the diagnosis experiences, then that's terrifying in and of itself. Blank feels like an unconventional horror because it takes the horrors of real life, plays it as a drama, but honestly, to me, it's really terrifying to see some of the things that these characters endure and go through, and then kind of to have it culminate in the last act and the things that happen and transpire in that last act, really embracing fully horror just is a masterclass. I talked earlier about films like Torn Together and The Universe and You, and how they are mixing genres and really succeeding in the way that those stories are being told. And I think Blank is right up there with it because it does have these really beautiful examinations of humanity and these really vulnerable stories that are being told through the lens of drama, comedy, and horror, and just kind of flow flawlessly. The grounded approach to the storytelling here really does make this for a compelling character study, but also at the same time, it is what makes this a heartbreaking drama and really works and excels in a multitude of genres. Match that with how riveting the performances are here. The writing is outstanding, and this is just all around a really well-made film. Blank is just a really well-made film. If you guys have a chance to see that or any of the films that are featured on this list, I highly recommend checking it out. I'll provide links in the bios for social media where you guys can find the filmmakers and where these films are currently making their festival runs. And at number 1, a little bit of a goofier film, but this movie just kind of hit all the right notes for me. The film is called Gnomes. So Gnomes is a mixed media type of movie. It basically tells the story of a cycle of events that basically an individual comes to a forest because they see something strange and then are eventually captured by gnomes and the cycle begins again. This movie is probably one of the shorter films on this list, if not the shortest film, but just how it mixes the practical effects of kind of stop motion animation alongside of this felt for the character design and the color palette that is accompanied with it and the unexpected violence that comes with it. It's just a perfect blend of everything. There's a lot of films on this list and a lot of films that didn't make this list, as well as feature films that really do embrace mental health. And every once in a while, for my own mental health, I like to enjoy just kind of turn my brain off. And I think that Gnomes is the perfect way to kind of do that. This movie is short, it's sweet, it's simple, and it's effective. As someone that loves the horror of the 80s, I think this film is a perfect representation of that while also feeling like a modern take and really using modern technology to kind of blend the worlds of the then horror to now horror, and it just is really well done. All right, so that is it for this list of GenreBlast shorts. All 10 of them. Like I said, this was one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. But make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button below because we have more than a dozen interviews coming at you guys from this year's GenreBlast with interviews with filmmakers that made some of the craziest films that we've ever covered on this publication. And in the descriptions below, you guys will find links to every film on this list, their social media, where you guys can currently catch them. Some of the filmmakers on this list had interviews that you guys can catch later in this month, and some of the filmmakers also had films that you guys can already read about as well. All of those links are going to be in the show notes below. So hit that subscribe button and stay classy. Thanks for watching.